So these are the notes we have from last week and the things we covered, and we had a ton of attendance last week. We talked with Keysight and Mersha particularly about the different pieces here with the config generator and the baby hero test, and then we moved on and we talked with Intel about their PTF update, and we reviewed a PRs. Yeah, we reviewed a few PRs down here at the bottom. So I was curious if anyone had something they wanted to talk about on this particular sheet, or maybe we could move into PRs. Okay, maybe we could, like I said, Gerald's out today and Prince may join later. So maybe we could move into PRs. Did anyone have PRs they wanted to discuss?
I do, but I'll wait. I'll wait my turn. There's some older ones.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen, this particular screen, and I'll go ahead and go to the PR section. Quick.
So I'd like to bring up 193. It's been waiting for reviews for a week, and there'll be things backing up behind it. If we could get some closure on that, that would be nice. That's Mukesh's PR.
Yeah. So do we have Marian and Reshma on the call?
Yeah, I'm here.
So would it be okay if we approve this PR?
No, I haven't reviewed it yet. There is one pull request that I'm fixing myself that's supposed to change side APIs. So I'm not sure how it will affect this one.
So you're talking about 201, Marian? The one you just submitted? Split?
Yeah.
I saw that, and I saw the pipeline run failure, and I made some comments in the PR about that. It should be easy to fix that. Just requires some additions to the SCI API query, or some changes to the SCI API query, which has to provide the APIs to libsci. I don't know if you've looked at that code that I put in there by hand several weeks ago.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I haven't committed the changes yet, but yeah, I know exactly what function you're talking about.
Great. It's also an opportunity to consider whether we ought to auto-generate those API query code. It's all pretty much boilerplate, because this is sort of an example of who changed the API, then the build breaks. If it were auto-generated, it would take care of it.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you think about that? Is that something you'd like help with, or is that something you can do, or you want collaboration on that?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing right now.
Oh, you're going to do the auto generation? Oh, that would be really good. Excellent. Okay, really glad to hear that.
Just make a comment, something to that effect.
So you think?
So I had.
Go ahead.
Yeah, this is Mukesh. So one question there. So the other PR has been open for like a couple of weeks now, and it's mainly like a test, right? So why should that have to wait for this new PR?
Are you talking about?
I'm saying I haven't reviewed it yet. I will get to. I'm not saying it has to wait for it. I'm saying that I haven't reviewed it.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Sorry if I wasn't clear.
Do you have
we just had a primary goal to freeze the SCI APIs, and I think we achieved that. So now we can get back to approving the pull requests to Dash repository.
Do you have any ETA, do you think, on reviewing 193 or finishing 201 or either?
Yeah, like today or tomorrow. That's what I'm doing next. I've got a reply from Microsoft Sonic team, who said that they believe they have everything needed to work on the Sonic software on the occasion. So we kind of informally declared code freeze on that till the org agent will be released. So now we can get back to the Dash repository and continue with that. Yeah, sorry, we had like 2 weeks pause on that. Now we can get back to it.
Yeah, clearly integrating with the larger efforts, pretty high urgency, right? It's like in the critical path of a lot of things. So it's good that you got the side API firmed up. And as a side effect, if you end up auto-generating the API query code, that would be a real bonus. So, good.
I agree.
Great. I can talk about a couple of PRs if now's a good time.
Sure.
And I can take the screen over.
Okay. I'm gonna stop sharing.
So first one I want to talk about is this one. There's been a long-standing technical debt in the make files and Docker files, the way they were constructed, both out of maybe a little bit of sense of urgency and also little oversights on my part. Some of the make files had a lot of sudo commands in them in order to get around some permission issues in the build, because the containers, I'll show you where all these sudos were. The containers need to write into the user's workspace, right? That's how it works. There's mounted directories, and when the containers run, they write into your file system, and I needed to have the right permissions to do that. And so there's sort of a hacky way with this fixed perms build target that was called frequently that would change the access to various directories. And there's nothing wrong with it technically, but from a logistics point of view, every time it does this, it might interrupt the script and require you to enter your sudo password. And Hannah pointed out to me on the side, hey, this is kind of inconvenient for automated workflows. So I finally sat down and worked through it painstakingly through all the make files and all the Docker files and figure out how to solve this the right way. And so one thing I did was get rid of the sudo commands in the make file, and there's a number of places where it was called. It's still needed in order to run software packet generator tests, because at that point, you're asking Linux to give you access to network devices. So that requires sudo, but for the main build, it's not required anymore. The other thing I did was fix the ownership and user identity inside the Docker files themselves. When I first built them, they all had my name splashed all throughout them. I was the owner of the file systems inside the Docker images, which is fine, but it's not really appropriate for long term. And the reason they had my name in is because the way they were constructed, they used a common technique in Docker files where you build them with your own permissions so that you can run them in your own file. And that's great for personal use, but for, let's say, Docker files that are used in open source, most of the time the ownership is root, but then you have all these other problems of it's got root identity built into it, and that's not always convenient. So I created something called dash user and a group called dash users. And I rebuilt all the Docker files to have this identity in there. It doesn't really mean anything. It's just something other than root and other than Chris. So this PR will basically fix all the sudos in the make files, and it will also fix all the Docker files so they don't have my identity sprinkled throughout. So I'm holding this PR in draft form until PR 193 goes through because of Docker file versions. So it's backed up behind that. But I will ask people to review this at the right time. Any questions about this? It's kind of a mouthful.
I was just kind of taking notes, but it seems like the right thing to do.
Yeah, it was just one of those technical bets that I had to have everything else off my plate to really think about it. And it only took one day, but you have to be in the frame of mind to solve these kind of problems where you can hold
Gotta be in
everything.
the zone. You have to be in the zone
Yeah.
for sure.
No meetings, no big projects.
Yeah.
Okay, so that'll be, I think that'll be welcome by people.
Hey, Chris, one question.
Yeah,
On the host system, do we have to create this dash user, or does it do it
no,
automatically?
no, you don't. What happens is the dash user in the make files now, when you run them at the right time, you will grant ownership to allow dash user to write into your file system, but it doesn't require sudo. And you don't have to. This dash user only really lives inside the container. Now, when you look at files, you'll see if it created, let's say, a Sci library header in one of the build steps, you'll see the owner dash user in your file system, but it doesn't require you to create it. Now, that being said, maybe I overlooked something, so I'll want someone to try this out in their environment and see if it works before we merge it. I want a few test subjects, let's say. But I did attempt to test this out and it seemed to work. But yeah, I'll ask a few willing victims to give this a shot before I merge it. Any other questions? I did a bit of research, on latest best practices on this problem of container image ownership, and it is a problem. And people usually do things like this, or they do, chmod or chown commands liberally. And it's kind of a pain. That such as Docker.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, and then the other PR, let's see, I wanted to talk about, I think might be of more interest to people. This one says document dash as a submodule. I have this goal that you can take this entire dash repo and import it as a submodule into your workspace so that you can actually incorporate it into your proprietary workflows and utilize the resources of the dash repo in your own environment for building your own proprietary images and running tests. So another way of saying that is you can have your own projects, or you don't have to cut and paste stuff from the dash repo. You can actually just use it as a Git submodule and it's all linked in nicely. And I'll just kind of show the picture. I've got a new README that'll be in this PR. And I tried to do a quick start where it just gives you simple instructions on how to incorporate Dash as a submodule into your own. And I did a test project right here in my own repo that imports Dash as a submodule. And so it actually explains how I did it. I just imported it, followed the instructions. And what you end up with is you have your project, and then you import Dash as a submodule. And then you can run make selectively and reuse a lot of the workflows that are inside Dash already in your own project, and you can use them selectively so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And if you import Dash into your project as a submodule, Dash also imports submodules too as part of its build structure. So that's just what you end up with in your repo. It's kind of complicated. And so here's the steps for doing that. It's really not that much. You can probably do it in 5 or 10 minutes. Just do a scratch project and import it and try it out.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'd like to know, first, let me show you a couple of drawings. Here's our tried and true workflow for the Dash pipeline with all the software workflows and the automated code generators and the testing. We're all familiar with that. Now, if let's say you wanted to have your own libsci generation, your own tests, etc., you need to customize these areas here, the ones with the exciting, vivid colors.
Yeah.
So you need to make your own Sci library. You need to have your own Sci backend. You need to make your own Sci thrift server. in order to talk to your implementation. Then you have some kind of a dash data plane. It might be an SoC chip, might be software, might be a mixture. These might all be in multiple processes. There's no assumptions about how it's done. It's third party. But you should be able to reuse a lot of this other stuff that's already been built. And so the purpose of this document is to give you a starting point to do this. You can import Dash in and then override and customize these steps as needed. So that's the point of this document that I'll submit as a PR, or that I've submitted as a PR. And I encourage people to read it through, and undoubtedly some questions will come up like, well, I have a different goal than what you specified, or that this won't work for me. How about trying this? So I encourage that kind of question and answer, and I can work with you, behind the scenes to try to make this work for your particular environment. And if there's learnings that come out of that, I would like to then backport them into this general workflow so that everyone can benefit from the most generalized approach. But then you can always customize behind the scenes. So I talked about all this. It takes a little bit of reading to go through it, but are there any questions about this? Does this sound of interest to people?
I have a comment. I like how you changed the color of the pieces that were specific to the data plane, the what you need to change. I liked that.
Good. But are there use cases that people have that might benefit from this? Like if people have, let's say, a software simulation of their data plane, this would be an ideal approach. And for example, this might be the approach we take to incorporate P4DPDK implementation, which would be an open source one ultimately. But there might be vendors might have their own software implementation that you could drop this in. And this also could be a starting point for your hardware implementation. There's no reason why this workflow couldn't also work for the real DPU cards. So once people have had a chance to digest this, I welcome feedback, and we can do it in the community. We can do it one-on-one, because obviously this gets into the area of your own proprietary backends and your own workflows. That I would be happy to try to make this work for different use cases. So that's that pull request.
Chris, this is a public pull request. We can look at this offline, right?
Yeah, it's right here, the top one, 203. So the pull request is there. You can download my fork and try it and run through this little. In this pull request, you can just download. Not the best way to view it. Okay, let's look at the pull request itself. Okay, so here's the pull request in Azure Dash. All you have to do is go to this project and git clone my repo for Dash and switch to this branch, and you can try it. And I have a sample project that actually goes through this workflow. So give it a shot, and I'd be happy to, if someone wants to set up a one-on-one Teams meeting to actually go through this together. I think it might be valuable for both of us, because I'll learn more about your use case and maybe adjusting this, and you can have some personal introduction to how it works, and we can all win in the end.
Yeah, I think especially if you're getting ready and you kind of want to do it in a software version first, while we're waiting for hardware or something, it'd be kind of really cool.
Yeah, and even if there's a hardware, if you want to apply it to your hardware workflow, I might learn more about your use case and try to generalize it so that everyone can benefit from the overall learnings. And we had a few different people trying this out and reacting to it. We might come up with something that's pretty useful. So that was what I wanted to share today.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'll
Thank
stop
you.
there. Yeah.
Does anyone else have a comment?
Pull request 190. If I can share my screen.
Oh, hi, Marsha.
There was a comment here about making it pass. It's passing.
Oh.
Oh yeah, the README, right?
Yeah,
quick.
I just clicked now on and fixed. add
Let's merge
words
it.
to the dictionary. Okay,
merge
this
it
is the one.
before someone changes their mind.
Right.
The
Right.
other one is baby hero test. So based on all these packets and sending the keep alive, I'll keep this one as is, and I will add another one that does not basically keeps the session open and basically close it as fast as possible. So there will be two variants, and yeah, this
How
one,
about
if we
you?
want to accept it, and I'll add one more that will not have all these requirements on parallel sessions and sending the extra packet, and it will be as fast as possible, and we'll have both versions, so everybody can run whichever.
And who do you need to accept it? Like me or anyone in particular?
I'm not
'Cause I'll do
sure.
it.
There is no reviewer assigned or anything to it.
I'll do it then.
It's open for a while now, basically.
I'll do it, Marsha.
Yeah, and for the generator, I still need to update their
Yeah, we'll wait.
based on the new schema. Yeah, that Prince basically mentioned.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I had.
Thank you. Was there anyone else on the call that had something they wanted to talk about or present in their PR or issue or anything? No?
One thing is that, Chris, you had mentioned you have another PR on top of the README file that we had uploaded for the SciPTF user guide.
Yes.
Is that 203, please? Or is it a different one?
No, are you? No, the README is in the OCP Sci pull requests.
Okay.
That's the PTF user guide.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay, this is in Dash. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I can bring it up real quick. Let's see if I can find it. Take me a second. So many links, so little time.
Yep.
Have to find the right repo.
That's okay. Got it. Like we can sync up offline. That's a different one.
Okay. Great. Oh yeah, it's I've got it. It's I'll paste the link here, Reshma, just so save time. It's Sci pull request 1559. And then that's already a pull request. And then I shared some diagrams with you the other day. That's
right.
awesome.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you guys saw my feeble attempt at a PR here, so had an update about the multicast counter. Since I opened it, do I squash and merge on my own, or do I wait for somebody? I mean, I did put Jay there.
Do you want review on it? Do you want people to review it?
Yeah, maybe I want Jay. Okay, yeah. So wait on that one then. I think we're gonna wait another week on the counters one. So okay.
We will not support multicast, at least at the moment, right? So are we trying to remove the multicast counter if there was one?
Yeah, what I mentioned was that Michael Zygmunt mentioned that verbally he mentioned to me that we're not using it. VFP had used it for some DHCP advertisement, I believe, but I just wanted to capture that for when we talked about it later. We weren't planning to. Yeah. So this is my PM attempt at a PR, so.
Oh, pshaw. Your PRs are fun.
Pshaw. Okay. Let's see if there's anything else then. Wait for that one, spell check. Okay, good. I also noticed if there's nothing else to talk about PR wise, a couple people I'm not familiar with, maybe Brian O'Connor, maybe could you introduce yourself, tell us who you are, or we can tell you who we are if you'd like.
Sure, yeah. Hi, I'm Brian O'Connor. I joined Intel about 4 months ago. Prior to that, I was at ONF for about a decade. I've spent the last 5 years or so as a member of the P4 community, working on primarily the software stack that runs on hardware targets, like switching ASICs. So I've been involved in the Stratum project, if you've heard of that. I've been involved in PINS, which is another sub-working group within the Sonic community.
Yeah.
And I've been a contributor to P4 Runtime and sort of involved in the GNMI open config community for a while. So Dash is a little new to me, but I've been kind of interested in following along and seeing what's going on. So.
Yeah, totally. We talk to Andy all the time as well.
Right. I didn't realize Brian joined. Brian and I also work very closely. So it's nice that.
Well, it's nice to meet you, Brian. And usually what I do at the end of usually around Thursday or so, I'll recap everything. I don't know if you can see my screen, but I'll give a recap of who was here, what we talked about, blah, blah, blah. But at the bottom, I do have the sticky links for what you're talking about, P4 here, for example, pins, PNA, IPEK, things like that. So as people join, they can at least get a bead on what we're doing here. So it's nice to meet you.
Brian, I'm real glad you're here because you can help socialize Dash on the P4 groups, which I've been trying to do occasionally and sporadically, but this will help.
Actually, we were highlighted twice in May at the P4 workshop by Chris and Reshma once and by the Sonic team once as well in the keynotes. That was cool. So nice to meet you, Brian. Thanks for coming. And then also, I'm not familiar with Vedrevu Rao Narashima.
Yeah, I think I introduced myself. I work for Napatech. We are a SmartNIC vendor, and so I'm seeing the prospects, to integrate Dash within the SmartNIC. So at this time, I'm more of an observer. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. And if you have any insight to throw at us, let us know.
Will do. Yeah.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Yeah.
So that's all the content I think we had for today. I can give a half hour back if you guys don't have anything else, or I've gone through what I have. So okay, well, thank you for your time and thank you for everything. I think next week, we have a couple things on deck that we want to talk about. I just need to align those things, and I'll go ahead and stop the recording. For the new people, I tend to share it on the YouTube channel and through the meeting notes. I'll probably add you to the Google group just so you can get the notes if you don't mind. And if you don't want, just send me an email and let me know, and I'll put my email in the chat window. That would be for Brian and.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. Thank you.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks, guys. Y'all have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Thanks.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye bye. Bye bye.